Hello, welcome to my channel. I am the Sarcastic Barman, and today we're going to be looking at evolution and a Bible study group saying that it's wrong. Let's have some fun.
In the year 2002, in Cobb County, Georgia, there was a sticker that was placed on the inside cover of the biology textbooks. That sticker simply said that these textbooks contain information on evolution.
So 15 seconds in, I'm stopping you already. If you're going to put the image in, read the text properly. If not, don't bother putting it in. It makes you look stupider than I am.
Evolution is a theory, not a fact, about living organisms, and it should be looked at with an open mind, studied carefully, and critically considered. Do you know, if you were to take the sentiments of that sticker and you were to look at the evidences for evolution with an open mind and you study them carefully and you critically consider them, what you would find is these evidences don't prove evolution at all.
Really? Because if they didn't prove evolution, it wouldn't be a scientific theory now, would it? You're just going to misrepresent all the information in this video, aren't you?
Here are 6 supposed evidences for evolution that simply are not good reasons to believe in evolution. Number 1, vestigial organs.
Oh wait, I know these. We've got wisdom teeth, we've got goosebumps, we have a tail when we're in the womb, our ears don't wiggle like they should do, even though we've got muscle there that no longer works. But they're just ones I can think of. I'm sure you won't touch on any of those, and you won't explain them properly though, will you?
In 1865, a German anatomist named Robert Wiedersheim said that he discovered 185 different useless or virtually useless organs in the body. And he said this was evidence of evolution. The problem with this vestigial organ idea is that there are 2 reasons it cannot prove evolution. Number 1, if you did have vestigial organs in your body, that wouldn't prove evolution. You see, evolution has to go from a single-celled organism to a human, and you don't need organs that are decaying and atrophying. You need evolution to produce new organs. We should find wings that are almost ready to allow organisms to fly that can't yet fly.
What is it with people who deny evolution want everything to fly? I mean, I'd love to see a flying pig or a flying sheep, but I don't think it'd give them much use. I mean, something like a squirrel maybe, climb up the tree, jump from one branch to the other, it'd be handy for them to have wings. Oh, don't they have squirrels that glide? Yeah, I think they do. I'm sure if you looked into it, that would be the first step in evolution to flying. You go gliding, then ones that glide better, then glide a bit more, and then maybe learn that flapping their arms with the gliding makes them fly better. But, you know, we'll skip all that because you don't like it.
We should find new visionary optical connections in living organisms that don't have them.
Visionary optical connections. I'm sure you just pick the biggest word you can to make yourself sound smarter. That's my tactic. But let's be fair, our eyes suck balls. We have blind spots due to the optical nerve coming in. The brain has to flip the image because of how our lenses work. We have lack of depth perception and colour perception compared to some other animals. I mean, I can't see the mouse over in the field over there. The fucking hawk can, and I'll eat it for breakfast. The fact I'm wearing glasses is a great example of why our eyes suck balls.
We should see things adding information, not losing genetic information. And the second problem with the vestigial organ argument is that 185 list of vestigial organs, it began to dwindle very rapidly. When we started looking more closely into them, and it became 180 and then 175 and then...
So you start at 185 talking and talk to 175, but run the counter down to 0. You're not trying to lean towards that we don't have any vestigial organs that don't have purpose, but you don't say it either. Misrepresenting some information there, are we?
Do you know, as we look more into the body, we realize that those vestigial organs were very useful.
For anyone that's not sure, that's a picture of an ear. So the muscles and the bit here. Basically, we can no longer tilt our ears this way, that way, this way. Yes, you do get some people who can wiggle them. It's about 10% of the population. It's a leftover trait. but most people can't do it. The muscle here is a vestigial organ. We don't need to be able to tilt our ears anymore because we can move our head better than the monkeys we descended from could. Well, monkeys, apes, you know what I mean. Don't pick on my shit.
Many of them extremely useful. Number two, the idea of homology. We're told that similarity proves ancient ancestry. And what I simply mean by that is we're told that because humans have similar physical characteristics to certain animals, that proves that they evolved from animals. Well, similarity doesn't prove evolution at all. In fact, you could see things that are similar and you would realize that those similarities are often caused by a common designer. Suppose there were a supernatural intelligent designer and he created a world where many organisms would need to drink the same water, eat the same kinds of food, walk over the same types of terrain. What would happen? Well, obviously, he would use similarities, similar structures to accomplish his goals. Similarity doesn't prove common ancestry. In fact, similarity argues more for a common creator than anything else.
So what you're trying to say is God is lazy. Things like laryngeal nerve, because they worked in fish, he decided, yeah, that'll be fine, we'll stick it in mammals, we'll stick it in giraffe, it's only got to go all the way down the neck, round the arteries and back up to its vocal cords. Bit of a pain in the ass, do we think?
Supposed evidence for evolution number 3, the fossil record. You know what we're told is that you can look into the fossil record and you can find proof that organisms evolved over millions of years. Supposedly we're told that you can find transformational organisms that prove this animal evolved into some other kind of animal.
Transformational organisms. You mean the ones that make transitional fossils? Those things we have shed tons of? Literally, we have tons of sheds full of them. What about them?
But if you were to take that seriously and you were to go to the fossil record, what you would find is that those transformational fossils are missing on a grand scale. In fact, evolutionist Mark Ridley stated that no real evolutionist, whether gradualist or punctuationist, uses the fossil record as evidence in favor of the theory of evolution as opposed to special creation. Now, why would he say that?
Could it be you're taking a quote out of context and cherry picking from it? I'm sure you wouldn't do that because that would be dishonest and lying, wouldn't it? But we'll finish by reading the last line of that part of the quote. There is more to it, but it is, "This does not mean that the theory of evolution is unproven." I wonder why he didn't want to include that.
Well, he would say that because when you look at the fossil record, you see organisms coming into the fossil record fully formed. You see a stage of stasis where they do not change, and then they go out of the fossil record without evolving into anything else.
You're not cherry picking again, are you? For what that seems to be, it's a picture of a fossil of Simoria, which is a tetrapod. We do have other tetrapods, we have older tetrapods, things like Tiktaalik. Just because that section didn't go on any further than Simoria doesn't mean that others didn't. Evolution is great for that. Some things work, some things don't. The ones that don't tend to die.
Exactly as the creation model would predict. The fossil record does not prove evolution.
It provides a lot of evidence if you're willing to understand it. I'm starting to get the idea already. You might be lying through a lot of this.
Number 4, the idea of mutations. We're told that mutations prove you could get a certain single-celled organism to mutate over multiplied millions of years and bring about new information on a grand scale that, given enough time, you could get a human being. What's the problem with that line of reasoning?
Well, there isn't a problem with them if you're being truthful. I mean, mutations can provide new information. An enzyme being able to use a new substrate is new information for that purpose. But I'm sure you're going to cherry pick information, come up with the normal anti-evolutionary crap that we get used to on the internet. Let's see.
The problem is that mutations don't give us new information.
We're only halfway through this crap. I am so going to need a beer after this.
Mutations can only take information that is already available and cause it to decay. Mutations are an example of a loss of genetic information. Let me give you an example.
Is your example going to be bollocks? Because if it is, I'm having a third after this.
For the last 100 years or more now, scientists have been studying fruit flies.
Called it. Point for me. That's an extra pint.
They are great examples of how you can mutate an organism. We have been zapping these fruit flies with radiation and mutating them in chemical ways for more than 100 years now. The reason that they are so valuable to study is because you can get a new generation every 14 days. We have in that 100-year period the equivalent of what would be millions of years of evolutionary time. And what do you have after all the radiation and mutation? Do you have a fruit fly that has evolved new genetic information? In fact, all you still have is a fruit fly. It hasn't evolved into anything else.
So, are we going to ignore the short-winged flies, curly-winged flies, no-eyed flies, orange-eyed flies, white-eyed flies? We're not using these flies to force evolution. We're using them to understand the difference in the genes as we change them. You're right that the life cycle is great for study. 8 to 14 days, perfect. We can see how these changes will occur and what will happen if we alter these genes. We're not playing with them to prove evolution. We're playing with them because they share 75% of our genetic code. What we can see changes in them, we can apply to ourselves.
Mutations don't prove evolution. That's simply not the mechanism that could get a single-celled organism to a human. Number 5, English peppered moths.
Fun fact before he gets into moths. Did you know in 1811 that nobody even knew the black peppered moth existed? But by 1895 it made up 95% of the population of all the moths. Just showing a great example for natural selection.
We're told that English peppered moths provide an example of evolution in action. You see, before the Industrial Revolution, there were 2 varieties of English peppered moths. One dark-colored, one light-colored, but the light-colored was much higher in ratio than the dark-colored. But after the Industrial Revolution, the dark-colored became the more prominent color and the light, the fewer in the mix. And we're told that's because birds could see the light-colored better, etc. And this was supposedly an example of natural selection. The problem with this example is, number one, many of the pictures were faked because the English peppered moths don't often land on tree trunks, and the entire idea was flawed in that way.
We had fake pictures in 1811, 5 years before the first camera, and 26 years before the first practical camera. Are you lying your arse off again? Or are you using modern images? I'm not sure if you know, but old cameras, we're going back to the 1890s and earlier, took a reasonable amount of time to process onto the back sheet. Some images had to be staged. So yes, if there are images of these moths on trees from 1890 and beforehand, they would have been staged. They would have got a dead moth and pinned it to the tree. Because otherwise, you're not going to see them landing there for long enough to be able to set up the camera, take the picture. Seriously, you're just being an ass at this point.
But the second problem was that before the Industrial Revolution, the genetic information in the English peppered moth genome had genetic information for 2 varieties.
Well, 1811 was the tail end, sort of the Industrial Revolution. It sort of started 1760, ending between 1820, 1840. And yeah, you could be very disingenuous and use the information like that, but we shall see how you go on further.
Light-colored and dark-colored, and after the genetic information was the same. English peppered moths simply do not prove evolution.
I'm not using the peppered moths as an example of evolution. I'm using them, well, I'm not using them. You're using them. And basically you're showing them as a perfect example of natural selection.
And number 6, horse evolution. If you were to look in your biology textbooks, you would see that horse evolution is often used as evidence that evolution really occurred. You would see a picture of a very small animal, almost looks like a fox or something like that, evolving into modern horse. But this scenario is fabricated. It's not true. It was made up. In fact, more than 50 years ago, Dr. George Gaylord Simpson
Gaylord
said the uniform continuous transformation of Hyracotherium into Equus, so dear to the hearts of generations of textbook writers, never happened in nature.
I did find it difficult to find a copy of this book online that I didn't have to buy. I'm a cheapskate. Yeah, sue me. Or just give me money, I'll buy the book. I did find other quotes from Mr. Simpson, Gaylord, where he does go more on about evolution. It's not that he doesn't believe in evolution. It's not that he doesn't believe the horse is a good form of evolution. I have a feeling, based on your earlier quoting, you may have cherry-picked this from other creationist sites, because that's the main place I found this quote used. Creationist sites, anti-evolution. His other books, however, not a whisper of them on your sites. I wonder why.
You see, this information that's presented to us as proof that evolution actually occurred is not proof at all. If we look at it with an open mind and we study it carefully and we critically consider it, we'll realize that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth and all of the organisms, and evolution just simply didn't play any part in God's creation.
Well, that's this video done. I'll find out in a minute how long it takes to put all this crap together. I'm definitely going to need a pint though. Please feel free, leave me a comment, leave me a like. It is my first video. I'm hoping to get better, possibly a better microphone. I know there's a bit of feedback on this one. If you want to comment saying that, even though I've told you, I just know you didn't watch to the end and you're a lazy cock.